Now is the From the book to the Walkman to the iPod, the history of transportation has been colored by the emergence of mobile technologies. These technologies have allowed privileged individuals to retreat into private spheres insulated from the metropolitan density of the common railway car. The result is a qualitative gap between the transportation experiences of those wealthy enough to have mobile technologies and those too poor to afford them. For the 12. The development of the books, mobile systems with likely worth the mobility European first class railway travel was shaped by the book. The prevalence of reading that was inclusive of first class travelers, the rich could not escape change the forward and out of the after the Walkman reconfigured experience of mobility, listening to music, one thing that the subway allowed for different experience to share piece of user needs were able to whitewash the urban area travel time conceptualized as dead time with the development of mobile technology. That time has become productive. The boundary between time and travel and activity are increasingly blurred. Mobile individuals who do not have access to technology, their time remains dead. Now we have 2 tiers of travel. For one, their time is productive. For the other, time's lost travel time remains barren and wasted. Now the emergence of the internet as a mobile technology has rendered transportation infrastructure a hybrid space, a space built on the convergence of the virtual and the physical. The rise of hybrid spaces has splintered the city, segregating travel along invisible lines of technological proficiency and wealth. In order to contend with the inevitability of such spaces, we must engage them critically as academics. For 12. Mobility is not just a matter of access to transportation. Mobility is differentiated by experience. Differential internet access, splintered urban areas, those with internet can communicate at a distance, stay comfortably with virtual mobility. Internet has become physical mobility, leading to splintered urbanism. The difference, the divide between those who have access to hyperspace and those who do not, the division between digital and physical becomes blurred. These spaces are only accessible to the population who owns smartphones. The hyperspaces lead to new types of exclusion. Similarly, debate has emerged as a hybrid space. Paperless debate is the elephant in the room, but it remains invisible within our discussions. Our activities increasingly defined by its integration with media, judge, philosophies, archived argument, wikis, evidence, databases, discussion forums. Our space is being rewritten by technology, but our discussions fail to reflect this. For 12. For information to flow must flow through the specific place of the organized logic of new information networks to exclusion with the device of digital technology. The less fortunate are being excluded in ways of understanding the places of the inhabit the digital to become part of the physical. These sites are related to information. Mobile cameras, smartphones, smartphones show spaces move through digital information emerge. Information becomes a part of that space. The interface to mobile device becomes a representation. Individuals used to negotiate physical space. The space remains managed for millions of people to whom the additional digital information base will not exist. People can move through hyperspace penetrate with digital information are qualitatively different experience of mobility than those who do not. The issues of differential mobility must examine the adoption of more advanced mobile technologies force analysis of mobility to take into account differentiated mobilities, hyperspace, and material appropriate. We must pay close attention to who is being excluded. Elite members of our community use technology as a weapon, flashing teams cards with the tags removed, pulling the analytics out of 2 AC blocks outside the round. Teams establish insider trading circuits of evidence, sharing hire coaches to cut evidence and go to camp all summer. We're not saying these things are wrong. We actively benefit from our financial privilege as wealthy debaters, but we should interrogate the practices that give some debaters more success than others. The debate community is our city, and our framework amounts to a form of city plan. Ignoring the technological splintering of our city converts our community into a mere network of individuals. This is the most insular and elitist form of community. For 12. Moderate cities built to decrease the chance of context streets designed to keep strengths without homogenizing places of location-based social numbers designed to overcome chaos. Urban spaces should remain places of the kind of private lives invaded public lives. Public life horizons for independent cities have been built to encourage the insularity community within the proliferation of the internet. People are able to construct communities that do not rely on proximity. They move to local community network individuals, and people are defined by their social network linking individual political regard to space, private spaces, physical streets, and digital information. They represent the dominance of social networks over community. Those who are not members of the individuals networking out through their exclusive space remains unchanged. Everyone else is left out of the network with no way to get in. This insular community searches over the emergence of difference with a facade of universality, perpetuating violence exclusion. It's violent exclusion. Seco in 2000. A community converts an alternative system, similarity between alternatives, so they just cannot the point of view together and reach reasonable agreement. Formulation of community privileges agreement. This assumes all can participate in the rational conversation irrespective of the difference of rationalities tend to include many groups and individuals who are deemed corporeal rather than rational. The ideal of communication fails to acknowledge the multiplicity of meaning in all speech. It assumes a singular and transparent context. All communication involves inconsistency. Minority groups are excluded from discussion because they do not adopt the dominant modes of authority in the rational conversation that assume homogeneity. The world around us is changing. Information technology is reshaping the way that we move through space. Our understanding of mobility is foundational to our approach to decision-making as a whole. Our capacity to understand the environment, geopolitics, science, capitalism, and all complex systems impinges on our understanding of how things move through space. Motility is imminent to the social field. We must harness available potentials and work within them to develop renewed academic understandings of travel in order to contest the logics that produce mobility discrimination across lines of race, class, gender, ability, age, and species. We must first authenticate a more fluid and intersectional approach to social science that recognizes the way that software writes mobility. Our advocacy affirmed the resolution as a research project. Scheller et al. 6. Intersecting mobilities produce a network pattern of social life and mobilities are involved in reorganizing institutions, generating climate change, moving illnesses, altering migration, mobilities, and moorings occur dialectically, institutional moorings, enable mobilities, the forms of deterritorialization associated with liquid modernity are accompanied by rhizomic reterritorialization. There's no increase in floating of extensive systems in mobility, differential mobility, and empowerments reflect structures within hierarchies by race, gender, age, and class, and the unity through transformation and movement into advantage depends on the exclusion of those who are not bringing the same way mobilities, resources to which not everyone has an equal relation to social sciences that fail to recognize how the spatialities of the social life presuppose the imaginative movement of people from place-to-place travel as being for the social sciences. They black box their developments of transportation infrastructure have enlisted the research initiative for understanding connection between diverse mobility and individual journeys depend on multiple systems, all needing to function successfully. Software rights mobility, immersion mobility paradigm challenges the ways in which social sciences research has been amobile, accounting for mobility challenges social science to change. The object of inquiries and methodologies for research, our approach to problematize the centrist approach to the tree place as the natural steady state and deterritorialism approach to the positive new brand narrative of fluidity. Prefer fluid analysis over sedentary thinking. Our reflexive research project is capable of accommodating an analysis of differential mobility while totalizing thought frames fail. Frith 12. Sedentary thinking emphasizes the structure that overflows with information, the dominant meanings of place with thought to be located in institutional structures. Sedentarism treats its normal stability, meaning in place and treats its abnormal distance change. And place instances is not the nose in the network. The matter has the people travel this new paradigm, as new courses about everyday life in contrast with traditional thought by focusing on the way on travel to and from sedentary enclaves that comprise the urban landscape mobilities and resources distributed unequally among social groups. There are large groups who still cannot find a bus to catch or who do not have access to the networks of information. Mobility is a reflection of the lack of power they have with their lives. There's a difference between someone driving a car to work and someone who takes a city bus, even if the travel time is equal. There is a qualitative difference. The meaning of place in the city is constituted by movement. Movement has never been equal. With the development of new mobile technologies, the nature of that inequality may have begun to fundamentally change. With the spread of smartphone technology, this divide will only widen as the technological elite are able to occupy new forms of hybrid spaces. Our research project takes the form of a mobile ethnography. Our attention to phenomenological difference reinvigorates social sciences. The role of the ballot should be to affirm this sort of creative and inclusive scholarship. Shallow 2006. The study of mobility involves those in mobile infrastructure that organize the intermittent flows of people, transporting people and communicating messages, conversion, overlap through recent digitization and extension of wireless infrastructure. Studies of mobility need to be brought together with local concerns about everyday transportation of material, cultures. Mobile socio-technical systems should be analyzed as hybrids. Mobile mobilities involve complex hybrid geographies of humans and non-humans that contingently enable people and materials to travel and hold their shape as they move across various regions. There are hybrid systems that combine objects and affects. Crucial to the recognition of materialities is the recentering of the corporeal body as an affective vehicle through emotional geography. Social science research needs to be more attentive to the research and the affective dimension of its subject of research and of its own performances. It is necessary to draw upon interactional analysis as well as conducting mobile ethnography. Means of travel are not only ways of getting from A to B. There is a complex sensuous relationality between the means of travel and the traveler. Sensuous geographies are not only located within individual bodies, but regions, cultures, and leisure spaces with particular kinesthetic dispositions. I have about a minute left, so you can just take a full process. Or actually, you know what? I actually want to ask you some questions. Go ahead. You can start.
Are you ever debating without a computer at previous terms this year? Have you debated without a computer?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Or you and Keenan, I guess the team.
Do you mean like I had a computer and I used paper, or I didn't have a computer at all?
Either one.
I used paper but had a computer.
Okay, why did you do that?
My computer sometimes resets automatically. I didn't want it to happen during speech.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you think that there are any other? Do you think the computer contributes to your competitive success at debate?
I think that it helps me to do research, if that's what you're asking, and I do use research to win debates.
Okay,
but I don't think that like.
Why do you think it helps you with research?
We have because I also give pretty good speeches.
Okay. The 1AC starts with the Frith card that talks about the development of the book as a mobile technology. The train car is a space where the privileged read books, listened to music, consumed media. What I don't get is the connection to the debate space. Can you explain how the meaning of the train car's consumption of media is analogous to debate?
Certainly. I think that the best way to read this Frith card is not the analogy that we are attempting to draw, but rather the start of our genealogical approach to research. Our argument is that this was the beginning of the way that mobile technologies infiltrated transportation, but this proceeded to overlap into the way that the internet and digital infrastructures implicate mobile transportation in the way that transportation networks are very much built into our virtual understanding, like when the bus is going to come. It's very much contingent upon our access to virtual networks.
I think my question didn't get out effectively because I sort of get what it means in the context of the topic, but clearly you have an analogy to debate.
Okay, yeah,
I'm trying to get at that connection.
You're correct. So sure, our evidence talks about this phenomenon of a hybrid space, which is a convergence of physical space and virtual space. Our argument is that debate represents one such space because it is very much implicated in virtual virtual practices that affect the way the debates happen. Our Frith evidence talks about how people in hybrid spaces feel alienated from their sense of place. They are no longer at home, or they are no longer safe within their own spaces because they don't have access to new modes of understanding.
How do you know that Frith is talking about the sort of like hyper-virtual space of the debate and not just speaking to the context of transportation, which your article is very specific.
Sure. I guess, why do you think the debate is a hyper-virtual space? I think that R1AC adopts a very different perspective that suggests rather the debate is a hybrid space, not one that is hyper-virtual or hyper-physical, but rather a convergence of these.
All right, that sounds good. I'm a little confused what the 1AC's stance on mobility is.
Sure.
Both what it is, what is mobility, first question.
Oh, what is mobility?
Yeah.
I suppose we would loosely define mobility as the capacity to move from place to place.
Does that include virtual movement?
Yes.
Okay. Now, your stance on mobility, there's unequal access to it in
differential access.
Is differential access to it in the status quo. Does the 1AC seek to eliminate those differences in access to mobility?
I suppose the 1EC positions itself as more of a heuristic. That's sort of the point of the research project. Our argument is not that we can come to a normative conclusion about these things before we research them. We think that the debate round represents an evaluative form of research that allows us to scrutinize both our own performances and engage with you dialogically about the way
Say the role of the ballot is about creativity. What's creative about the 1AC?
I suppose it's not entirely about creativity. It's also about inclusion. Our argument is what makes the 1EC creative and inclusive scholarship is that it is not concerned with a monolithic interpretation of the resolution that seeks to parse out particular policies, but rather with a resolution that enables us to. Excuse me?
I need to write that down.
Okay.
Okay. 3 off in case.
Do you have a computer could use?
No, but if you want mine, you can have it. Okay. I'm not going to need it.
We just need something to see the evidence on.
Yeah, like I'll do my best to just. Do you mind just keeping it up on yours in case I need it? I'll do my best to float him, but in case.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Keenan, does that anybody need to give you the plug?
You can also use it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, would either of you mind?
That would be ideal.
Yeah, it would be cool if we could use a computer.
There are like 8,000 people in this room. You ask like to do this.
It's true.
Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe that question, maybe.
Thanks.
Oh, does he? Is there something said he did?
Yeah, there's a card.
Oh, one of the off is on paper, so I'll just flip that to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
More paper than I've seen in Facebook.
Now, y'all don't have flush up yet, though?
We do not, sorry.
Let's go. That's a big rush.
Sorry, you said it was 3 off in a case?
No, 3 off in case.
What?
3 off in.
Yeah. Cool.
Just give us one moment.
File's called 1CB at Royce.
Okay. It's just installing the driver or software or whatever.
Yeah, it's time to install the drivers.
Keep it out. Yes.
I know, well.
That was my turn.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Give me a second to just situate myself. Yeah, sure.
Ready?
Yeah. You said 3 off, yes?
3 off in case.
Awesome.
No. Unfortunately. Ready?
First off, is now the affirmative distances themselves from the real world within an academic cloister. The revolution is not writing an essay. Revolution comes at the end of the gun barrel. The ranking is casting out rifles. The honorable chairman Mao Zedong in 1927. The hackers of Pesha was those who began to come forward to fight for the Paris and Emperors was and trying to peace the tires. I think fight for the right now. Here was Yan Yang, and we talked about the best association, and we talked about the village of money, best price. The bombarders of executive restriction, they were turned down 5 and 0 year tracks and the tires. His course ready to be released. Revolution particles not. Obviously, revolution. Revolution. Weeks established with theory and especially sedentary and it leads to the houses on the starting to the training talking about the revolution was not dinner party we're writing an essay waiting picture not cannot be so private, so legally, so temporary, or so courteous that revolution by the living act, but the person who will be part of the privilege cost to be an indication of revolution must really oppose it. And their relentless criticism traps us in a march for our freedoms are limited. There is no authentic freedom to act. This action of our certain assault was led in 1902. Freedom of prison is slogan for the present times and what's going on with legal problems and shares and social having a non-serious that act freedom of prison, act freedom, and there are with the bourgeoisie ideas that social freedom to the grand world, but freedom is must be represented freedom because and also searching model along with the surrounded by enemies and then but not within British march up as several mornings cried up in the end march oh yes you're free when you're not you're within the park place not searching for the freedom you're free when you're free to fight. And next off is the other K. So when he turns objects of their discussion into things that they're used for us instead of things to be used for by themselves. They're monkeys claiming that textual objects of the 1AC are bananas and they use them for their own like Galway and 12. Consider expressly everything self for us and of course the object can move us for the category he picks up our versus things society to be about it and every single thing but saying it the line told everything and we are going money monkey for calling never actually we are for object real and also learning things around for always when the correlation between itself and we're training for ourselves and textual objects have an existence in their own right and are meaningful absent interpretation refused their essential interpretation of the one you see right and gold I don't know the painters and have I disagree that the painters are painting a mirror to use the statement of wasn't autonomous painting autonomous with the means any cultural or social policy no word and then voting app functions as an interpretation of the 1AC Speech Act. When you vote after you have made a value judgment on the speech and thereby decided what it means, the affirmative requires the destruction of the structures that allow the systems of meaning that are created. Refuse to interpret the 1AC in the way that you want to or in any way at all. Sontag in 66. All concepts have remaining within the concept and we respect preventing an argument is an argument or grammar within the concept and exerts extraordinary agenda for a person given a works for an interpret the same space even in real what's done so begins at work of our interpretation of the what you said almost one the entire statement says a little bit of access to the higher interpretations radical radio preserving the middle thing and what's your true person who are repudiating through is also in 1% of interpretation is a mystery the subject of which the real one all observed phenomenon is racking in the context of this program within true meaning and the social lens and the text and the implication of interpretation project interpretation reactory and then the interpretation part of poison friends of the intellectual word interpretation to impoverishment to the 1% of meaning the world is impoverished and suicide bomb the 1AC destroying the meaning of the text Fernando and 10 the poet split pain exaltation of your use and concept of intuition context and to the philosophy of the vote and use the threat and testing without beyond knowledge philosophy not doing good stuff that exposes them one exposes them poetry teaching not enough philosophy beyond the knowledge without books or something you're set with it with the grammar by grams and every and set philosophy approach there are rest money the ability to provide one moment set up and what can repeat the response why is it not what to be response and the woman's form response one bomb set up and she said bomb completely in respect of limited one concept and she has anything of our and I'm not going to understand this always a possibility I think it's no we were talking about the situation that of course we are always in this way of movement of the see but function of including action possibly it was on and the call for the ballot is to breathe life into the system is dying as we speak but their interpretation of the 1C can only serve to reunify the structures of meaning evaluation only the negative can solve to vote after this vote for reduction and for exhaustion veto and 11 John Regan possessed as a symbol of propagation of self-indecision must commit suicide and alcohol have been in order to do natural to reduce the population and had to destroy the West as a position of moral and suicide of the border war and something else vision I think and next, office framework interpretation must defend the high political consequences of the United States for the government increasing its investment and transportation infrastructure in the United States. And the means that you should mean the debate should be solely about the outcome of government policy of American history. The topic is ancient Jews, the U.S. and and violation of the affirmative is the affirmative resolution is reissued running against one is limits 8 or and we're going to be third with exiled debate for China 95 and change the most possible because a lot of almost the number of these words makes it no judgment of being killed educational debate should we GA you'll try to something about it you can argue I'm not have to argue that you to be school and sure ideas from subject and see delivered argument is key to prevent oppression about the threat of idea of exclusion, friends, domination, is based on the negative forms to emphasize any power that the representation, any rational order, and creation, and public result, or dominant realities, this policy education ace, which I debate is key to policy simulation, activism, creative Jordan 99, makes of students understand policy issues by having contested other terms, debates, and represent all the different consequent issues, but must give mental vastly for the media, gives you actually legal housing, great reward, research reports, become really resident every issue becomes an excellent push and actually different opportunities for the policy houses. B, multiple existential risks are now intellectual time responsible to debate about meeting policy criticism, like absent this focus is self-serving water in 83, or the given has to technical hard global internet and to wars, real wars not out, we're not that confident, more responsible to be important, and also the strategic research of this intelligence generated about meeting policy and efforts that they promote and assumption real resident it is going to be alternative as it must be corrected and we reverted rather than having on part and then in your back to crossing and gives risk to afford of gratification and industry is remembered A, they loot are the best granted by according to USFG action, no topic that says exists, B, no role negative criticism of USFG are negative granted in order to produce class data essential courses to debate the resolution that course extra topical and C, case. The one is focused on mobility and fluid emotion and perpetuates ableist distinction between the flat body and the perfect body, perpetuating ableism. Q and Q. The understanding visually has dominated biological and active and social aspect of flat body in individual social participation with and importing as a Christian not only and social physical religious systems out of the person that want to be associated with biology and system of organization disability for creative mission and biological protection of people and they use their criticism of democratic institutions is shoe shall Democrats that democracy is tied to universal axons of their use of language to promote a democratic ethos is connected to political institutions to prevent exclusion movement 1996 according to the philosophy standing above all
Scratch that argument. Scratch process.
Okay. What influenced your decision to debate paperlessly?
Pardon?
What influenced your decision to debate paperlessly?
It's a lot cheaper for a school like McClatchy, who doesn't have any funding from the school district, to use paperless debate because otherwise we have to pay $50 per tub.
That makes sense.
Otherwise, it would be impossible for us to debate a tournament like Way, Greenhill, and have the level of competitive success that McClatchy had this year.
I see what you're saying. So, was your decision to debate paperlessly purely influenced by your own concern for competitive success, or was it also?
I like actually getting to the tournament. Like even if we went 06, it's much cheaper for us to get there paperless.
That also seems
wanted to debate.
That assumes the only reason that John and I debate is debating to win.
Right. I don't think I was trying to convey that, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you for answering my question. My next argument is about these two critique arguments you read. What's the stat? Under what conditions can you pick these arguments?
John?
Any and all.
Okay. Sounds good. I'd like to ask about this Mao argument you read first. I don't really understand why the affirmative needs to subscribe to a revolutionary goal. Like, your evidence seems to assume that we were striving for revolution and we failed by engaging in it.
I mean, your academic analysis simply confines itself to a research product in the force of very real issues that we believe that are better solved by being.
How does the alternative address these issues better?
The alternative addresses the issues better by addressing them face to face, using violence to break them down ourselves.
Wait. How have you performed any of that?
We haven't performed anything. We just read evidence saying that that's a good, viable
performance of violence, though.
Okay, my next question has to do with this. I don't know, like what do you want to call this? You call it like the other case?
We call it the death case.
Okay, the death case. Sure. My question is how do you? I'm a little puzzled by this claim that like there is no meaning, or is it that there is no meaning?
Our argument is not that there is no meaning to things. Our argument is that the meaning is created by the eyes of the interpreter. So in that sense, whether or not there is meaning to a text is our choice. Do we choose to give meaning? Do we choose
what textual elements of the 1EC do we establish rigid interpretive parameters for understanding?
Well, I set this up in Crossix when I was talking to you about the story of the train and the story of media consumption and transportation. You have chosen to interpret that as analogous to the debate space, which is a static interpretation that links these two things as tied Our argument is that
I understand everything. Okay, thank you, John. I understand everything up until you say static interpretation. The 1AC specifically posits itself as a reflexive research project that is adaptive to criticism. Why is that mutually exclusive?
we will say that your fluidity is a lie, and that you are trying to claim that you are fluid while having a static interpretation of a text that allows you to get valid. But second, and this is important, even if your interpretation is fluid, it's still an interpretation. Our impact evidence gives huge reasons why any interpretation is bad.
Okay, we'll start.
So you're just gonna like flip onto the other part?
What?
Where are you gonna flip?
Where would you like me to flip? I can flip right or left.
We can widen it. So all of mine?
Yes, that sounds good. I'll just flip onto that like section thing.
If you just take that step up.
Awesome.
Okay. So like right here, I'll just like
Yeah.
every like minute.
Okay, sounds good.
Right. Yeah, it's about 90%. The pale simulacra muscles. Yeah, thanks.
All right. It's got all the notes. It's case framework. This the death K, and then the Mao argument.
One second. So,
Case, death,
it's a little more than 1 second.
Case framework, death, Mao.
All right. If you read June band name challenge, then you can take framework death now. Give me a minute.
Yeah, you might have already.
I think framework death now.
I like that.
Death frame.
No.
All right, is anybody not ready?
They read ableism and turn our evidence into the context of criticizing differential mobility. We open space to interrogate the ways that make certain people more mobile than others, which means we link turn this argument. They have also conceded that interrogating hybrid spaces in debate is a gateway issue to all of the content of this debate, which means if we win that some part some part of their technological performance in this debate is bad, it will come before the framework arguments go to framework proper. First, our offense one include exclusion. There are the arguments making visible the oppression caused by paperless debate dooms or activity due insularity and exclusion perpetuated by the technological elite that's CCOM 2. Secondary thinking framework shadow has a singular interpretation of the resolution that is ignorant of place knowledge which reflects the exclusionary backlogs of social science that refuses to acknowledge mobile complexities is the worst sort of scholarship. That's for 3. Flexible thinking research projects are necessary to alternative to traditional approaches that enable us to deconstruct the prevailing logic of the topic in order to engage in an essential dialogue with our community that creates more inclusion and better research. Our Scheller at all evidence indicates that our 1AC interrogates differential mobility is essential in order to understand the ways that all sorts of systems from climate change and economy operate, which means we are a prerequisite to any topic. Education 4, we control uniqueness debate. Education is useless in the status quo. Everything devolves to a question of politics or the state's counterplay. 5, complexity decide our creativity makes us better planners. That's Hilliard 11. Conventional planning is any moral strategies, commodity navigation, imagination, become critical factors. Practice proceeds by groping the dark. By adhering to some predetermined master plan, planning on the plan of eminence could become a more inclusive, democratic, and creative imagination to the past, present, future. Collaborative discussion about potential consequences, policy outcomes are unpredictable. Creativity is experimental, recognizing limitations of particular constraints, and attempting to work within enabling constraints where possible. No matter how we diagram spaces of possibilities, there will always be the unknown. 6, their conception of decision-making puts product before process or research project as a precursor to making non-exclusionary decisions. That's Butler and 2K. We often make decisions about what we'll like to pursue without asking how our notions of what is possible are constrained in politically consequential ways. What does it mean to be making a normative judgment when you have not interrogated the field of possibility itself constituted through violent exclusion? Decisions fails to consider the very basic terms certain lies are not considered lies in our effort to be normative. We perform violence and exclusion. We feel that we know what is speech is, what is comprehensible. Certainly leads to a terrible parochialism, keeps it from being open, radical, different in the scheme of intelligibility and what to realize fundamentally not adequate and encloses us from the possibility of understanding others and ourselves. Now the defense. 1, counter-interpretation research projects are a form of affirmation. 2, we are resolution all discussion centers around the hybridization of transportation infrastructure, which our first evidence indicates is a necessary discussion, which means we access the core of the topic. This checks the limits, explosion, and ground laws because the lit exists. 3, not a model. It's the last turn of the year, which means the discussion does not set a precedent, which means there's no limits explosion. 4, we are switch side debate. We couldn't do it on the negative because we glued every debate to the permutation. There's no topic topical version of the act, either forcing us to engage in switch-side debate is also the same for an invisible exclusion that our sequel evidence criticizes. They say limits one. There are infinite arguments that are germane to the topic. Two, they say policy education. We provide policy education to the athletes about how hyperspaces affect the topic, which means we act as more forms of topic education. They say fairness, fair for who? The technocratic elite in debate who use computers. They read the Shively evidence, all Shively saying that we need a starting point for discussion or after starts at the point of the resolution. It expands, which means we are topical, according to her.
Go to the death arguments.
There is no reason voting after the value judgment. It suggests that it just suggests that we debated better, and no link 1AC is not explicitly interpreted by ourselves or by them. And there is no bright line for what constitutes text and what constitutes interpretation or criticism of debate is a text in itself, and our performance in this debate there. And their argument is the argument that there is no meaning. It relies on a position of privilege. Careless debate lets them step outside of the community and ignore their social location. The idea that certain words don't have meaning papers over the sorts of violence that words do to other people, maybe not Keenan and Spurlock, but other members of the community, and permutation endorse the affirmative and the alternative, and all non-competitive parts of the alternative, and permutation endorse the alternative.
If you go back to their last argument,
there was the use of the word terrorism as an example of this, that is implicated in real violence, and fluid analysis is not a link because it lets us fluid analysis solves the link because it lets us reinterpret the text of the 1AC and everywhere and however we want. And this obviously is not consistent with framework with a framework argument, which is bad because they commodify the people they talk about. For example, they are probably going to ignore the ableism argument they made on Case in the Block, but which is a form of commodifying those disabled people to by the balance of the judges, and the idea of suffering is relevant presumes position of privilege that allows the worst form of structural violence to continue. That sounds bomb in 94. In Nietzsche, we find our grasp of the truth that hungry persons cannot think to become a philosopher to base necessities of life. If that describes comfortable bourgeois logic, Nietzsche probably never saw an acutely hungry person, never has no human self-command is effective in such forms as provide basic welfare support. Zarathustra, the author, does not care. There are two forms of vulnerability, bourgeois and pain, and basic vulnerability. The second, he simply neglects, and they foreclose pragmatic metaphysical functionalism by emphasizing banal ontological issues instead of rational epistemic interrogation. That Scalia in 212. Impossible to begin to claim it is possible to begin with anything but ontology, lighting distinguishing between methodological and metaphysical dualism, reject methodology by suspending the metaphysical and epistemological investigation of reason by attempting to secure distinctness of the inferential, seek to extirpate metaphysical bag. Even if we are forced into ontological decision, this wouldn't legitimize our ontological realism. Rational agency must be recognized even if we endow rationality with a minimal metaphysical character, or being delivers us into reflection about reason. OOP works in acting profound philosophical regression, how to reconcile the critical necessity to adjudicate a world not designed by the intelligible.
Go to the Mao arguments.
One, there is no reason that we limit freedom of them or of ourselves. We work with our research project does not have limits. Plus, we do not say other people have to engage in research projects. Just that we should be allowed to free link term. We increase freedom in debate because we open possibilities for research in debate and for interrogation to the hybrid spaces in debate, which is something that was previously foreclosed to us for permutation. Endorse the affirmative and all non-competitive parts of the alternative. 5, endorse the alternative, and we do not confuse ourselves or we do not confine ourselves to research. This is how we approach differential mobility or reflexive modes of analysis. Allows for other people who want to interrogate hybrid spaces to engage in other more inclusive other ways. 6, they didn't perform the alternative, which is a solvency deficit, which they saw a comparative solvency deficit from the app. No reason that the inclusion of the permutation, or the inclusion of our advocacy in the permutation is a net benefit, and then there's no impact. There's no impact to the debate community. The criticism has no impact on the debate community, which means the affirmative's impacts come first because we have to interrogate the sorts of inclusion that takes place in our community before we can start to look outwards and interrogate the sorts of political calculations that people are making in the outside world. And that means the alternative doomsday because we have no way to apply the alternative to the debate sphere. And coalitions just had their overt rejection destroys our ability to find allies. That's question 93. One either indulges in total concurrent centrist utilities leads to disastrous politics, putting groups that have the most common to unite against each other's patricidal critique against politically suicidal obliterates the state, or political activism based on coalitions for uniting behind a common cause. Even as one, recognize that coalitions are comprised of groups that have unresolvable views of reality and conditionality is bad because the conditions that sponsor strategic decision making and first the people they talk about and to poker chips to buy your ballot.
Yeah, I'll just write on that. You go back to the thing. Our ontology of freedom selves.
Our ontology of freedom self, that's May and 5. To change the world and to celebrate life, this is the struggle the event can lead to disaster, palaces, forcing the celebration of life, to change the world is the past, the sad revolutionary alternative, shift one for life, to pure celebration of life, it is anathema for all the struggle between the desire for life, celebration, desire for world change, the struggle between the revealing factual joys that constitute our world and wrestling, from its intolerability for a body to be in the one world is for it to be temporal. They say this is concrete, the bottom of the body, world, and the nexus of all. Here, other days where freedom lies, to see freedom apart from our incrustations, the world is to liberate ourselves from the influential, to bind to our private prison, to within anthropological constraints. This is where you discover our freedom. There's always more to do. Engage contributes to making you who you are. It's where the power is, where your life is, where your intersection of your life and those of others. It is the moment where you are seeking to change. It's not a moment in which you don't exist inside, and it's not a moment of yours to sacrifice to others. No longer belongs to you. It remains a moment of your life. The illusion is you think that this has nothing to do with you. You made a decision to participate in world change. Freedom lies in lies from the world in ways we are folded into it, just as ourselves folds of it. Smart. Yeah.
On that critique, you said that the alt isn't able to solve because it doesn't bring itself into the debate space. How does the affirmative bring itself into the debate space in a way that the alt
Sure, I think that's pretty clear. Like, one of the ways is like our performance of our research project. This takes place on multiple levels. One of them is we are not using our computers in this debate. We are only debating paperless. The second one is the minute of the 1AC that we gave to that we used to ask questions of you.
Your performance is just not using paper?
Well, our performance is taking the position of somebody who could not possibly use, or who does not have access to computers and phones and mobile technologies.
Yeah. Our fifth evidence, or our show and area evidence, indicates that the problem with social science and status quo is that it is not self-reflexive and it does not analyze or does not scrutinize its own performances. So our mode of debating in this round is a way of scrutinizing the way that we perform in most debates. We are generally critical debaters, but we think we have room to improve. That is why our research project happened.
Okay, so if that's true, why is our research project able to create change in a way that simply researching a critical affirmative or researching a policy affirmative is unable to?
Sure, there's a difference between the sort of research that we do outside of the round and the research that takes place in debates themselves. The idea is that just because we research sorts of like the topic outside of the round doesn't mean we do research about our community inside of the round.
Now, that assertion I don't think is really backed up by anything. Who are you to say that people aren't self-reflexive about?
I mean, I don't know, dude. Maybe you gain education about the way that paperless debate affects our community by cutting politics cards, but I certainly do not.
And
those
also,
are two totally
it
types
obviates
of
like the other internal link that Robbie just explained, which is about the way that we engage with you dialogically in this round by asking you questions, which is a form of research in itself.
Okay, so why can't we ask people questions about the way they research?
You can, but you haven't.
Also, it's not implicated.
Why is all of this a reason to award you the ballot just because you're discussing?
That's a different question.
I mean, like, yeah, sure, this is like a different discussion. We think our research project is something valuable. It is a way to interrogate the types of inclusions and exclusions that may possibly be going on in our debate community. The 1AC did not take a stance on whether that was true or not, but our opinion may certainly evolve throughout this debate, whether that is true based on the findings of our research.
Okay, so will you ever come to a conclusion about what is possible?
I don't know.
The 1AC will never come to a deterministic 100% conclusion. It is a question of projecting speculations about the way that things impact our debate community. We speculate that exclusion is present in our debate community as a consequence of paperless debate. We can't know that for sure because our research project never reaches a conclusion. But we can improve, we can gather more information, we can learn more about the community, about the way it impacts us, and that will enable us to, increase the validity of our speculations.
Where's the first half of this card you read on the desk?
I'm sure we. Oh, this was never read. This card, that was like the sample.
Yeah, the first half.
It's certainly missed it.
Can you read it?
I'll look at it.
That's actually
Can you start writing?
No, you can wait and get.
Here you go.
That's the first card?
Yeah.
And it was 2 cards on the game, right?
Yeah, great.
I know. And could I get the mouse? So
Can I get that May card too?
Yeah, that makes card.
I don't see Okay. So you said framework, case, and then depth.
Yes.
Not going to prefer another reason to go against us and speak or conceding that you should be coordinated in the main states also do conditional ethics works later. No, to case they don't access the link to relational litigants and mobility is a bad starting point for politics because it includes the people who do not have access to mobility also. The critique alternative is going to be able to solve all of the offense of this
So they say that we perform through technology. I have a sneaking suspicion based on what's going on in Crossix that the fact that I'm using a computer is going to be a big part of the 1 hour. So here's my answers. First, you used computers last night in your debate. You are arguably a worse form of engaging in technological mobility because you are essentially the argument of putting away the computers, but getting a fake pair of crutches and saying that you're in the social location of a person who's disabled. Stop lying. And paper is a form of technology too, which means that you access none of your arguments about the fluidity of technology being bad. Your evidence starts with the discussion of books, which are on paper. Also, we have a lot of paper evidence as well, which means that we are a hybrid form of engaging with knowledge production through having both paper and digital evidence. It's important to consider arguments before the method they are presented, and it's the only way to find the best strategy for us as academics to create productive change in the world rather than arguing about, well, you should have made your argument on a paper or a computer. It is the only way to have a discussion about the methods, or the arguments. There's the critique. The critique is called death because it celebrates the death of the author and the death of the audience. The interpretation of the 1AC can only be a bad thing. We control external impacts. They have dropped our info evidence, which indicates that interpreting the balance inside of commodity exchange means they will always link back into structures of production. That if you knowledge is something to be commodified for winning the role of the ballot, our info evidence is the only external impacts in the round because it indicates that this reifies a system of calculability and consumerism, which is not solved by the affirmative. Additionally, it turns the entirety of the case. They say that fluidity is key, but the affirmative has a predetermined meaning to the genealogy of transportation. They start off discussing the way that virtual knowledge has invaded the field of transportation, but instead of just letting that be as something that is a fact, of course they have to make it apply to debate. Of course we have to use this text for our own meaning, our own interpretations, to advance our own ends. That is not fluid. Even if you are a fluid interpretation of the resolution, you are not a fluid interpretation of the text you read at the beginning of your what which means the alternative is much more fluid. It also means their research project will fail. You have a telos in mind when you implement your research project. The very fact that there is an interpretation of the 1AC means they have some telos in terms of maintaining the structures of meaning. Our Fernando evidence indicates that you must destroy these structures of meaning to have any radical potential because they are the same ones that have reified the hierarchy of the subject. If the role of the ballot is creativity and inclusion, you should resist the single interpretation of virtual mobility and transportation infrastructure because it's not creative. It does not allow us to view mobility as relating to anything but the debate space, because that's what the 1AC did. You should affirm the creativity of the text itself, not their interpretation of it to debate. Remember when I wrote down that last thing he said in Crossix? That was very important because he says that the affirmative is able to resist a monolithic interpretation of the resolution. I'll take it one step further. The negative resists a monolithic interpretation of the 1AC, which means that we are able to access all their arguments about fluidity. This means we solve case because you can still affirm creativity, but you just should not seek to interpret the 1AC. Any attempt to interpret what our alternative means reifies the structures of meaning. The suicide of our alternative is critical because it is an act that is so radically meaningless within our contemporary understanding of what we should do that it breaks down the structures of interpretation. For an understanding risk of technology, we must imagine a gesture or a moment to speak of death of the suicide bomb that a gesture attempt to analyze the evil of transparency where it's an implement a framework of analysis when we see the situation itself. All we are doing is make the model real to the point where all differences are flat. The model refers to nothing but itself and no referentiality is inside us. Of fire open to all possibilities. This is a terrorist state where experts where question and answer are one. The yearning for metaphysical coverage, the need to define, state, make transparent, the need to know, the need for certainty. Is a yearning for a particular kind of death or life of activity streaming. We are left in this lack of life, moment of relationships from a movement becoming into stagnancy, beginning all the way till the growth of trade from a knowledge right reason derails the movement itself. It settles into a structure, becomes lifeless and dead. I attempted to fully understand religion. What ironically occurs is the death of the religion itself. Never mind the line. They say that going past is not a value judgment. Yes, it is. You said the role of the ballot is to affirm creativity and inclusion. Claiming that there is any role to ballot means that you are interpreting what the ballot means as opposed to letting it just exist on its own. The entire 1AC is a process of interpretation relating structures of transportation that are obviously not part of debate to the debate phase. And also, they say that you should not have to defend one interpretation of the 1AC. Yes, you should. The analogy, which is your whole app, is your interpretation of what transportation means in the context of debate. They say that our assertion that there's no meaning is an argument that can only come from a position of privilege. First, we are not saying that there is no meaning. We are saying we get the choice of whether or not to ascribe meanings that
things, they need to win a net benefit that we should ascribe meaning, because we have a lot of reasons why you shouldn't. And also, this is a wash. You are very privileged traders. You acknowledge this yourself, and so are we, which means that there's not a reason for either team. We should still not interpret the 1AC. They say permutation vote. By link analysis above proves this is probably going to be a non-starter, but the alternative requires a sacrifice in the structures of meaning in the 1AC, which means it's never possible to combine the two, because the interpretation of the 1AC must be rejected. They say terrorism is an act of violence, and we should not defend it. First off, we did not defend terrorism. We have said suicide bombing, which is not intrinsically tied to terrorism. Our suicide bombing is also not an actual implementation of violence. It is very clearly related to destroying the structures of meaning of the interpretation, which means we are not actually advocating for terrorism. They say fluidity solves the link. First off, we have one that you are not really fluid. You are only fluid in the context of the resolution, but you do not have a fluid interpretation to your 1AC. Additionally, if you are fluid in one way and relating to the resolution, but you are not fluid in others, you should go negative. They say performative conservation framework 1, there's no impact to interpreting the 1AC. Also, we need multiple options to be able to find the best methodology that was on case, and you like to read multiple affirmatives. You don't really care about this issue to the point of making it an unconditional affirmation. You have clearly broken this app as a strategic choice to try to beat us in the corners of the TOC. You also link to conditional ethics. Your whole app is about fluidity. You don't statically defend anything. You are conditional in the sense that all you say we should care about is fluidity. They say we are commodifying ableism. That is not true, because I'm still extending ableism, or we can also commodify the author by interpreting the instructions of meaning. Next to the position of privilege is bad. First off, that is a wash. Additionally, even if we are from a position of privilege, you still go negative. King online. Spivak reacts against the structural idea that language should be something one of the main problems is the world's the same logic of Western knowledge. Spivak's emphasis on representation questions, presumed notions. People don't have to say that undergraduates, let's say, a young white male student politically correct would say, I'm only a bourgeoisie white male, I can't speak. I say to them, why not develop a certain degree of rage against the history that is written such an abject script for you that you are silenced? The question of how to represent the other is responsibility on one's position. They say to you that the alternative includes pragmatism. One, we do not say ontology first, which is the only word in this part. Additionally, we do not include pragmatic action, and you are pragmatism, which means there's probably no impact to this argument. It's the 1AC, which probably hate pragmatic action. You say the main part. First, the affects comes first. There, the normalizing structure of interpretation causes depression. Grangsko and Thorburn alone, that activism is the narcissistic responsible for suffering the infinite basic power of capital. The chaotic logical action to become important at times of reaction to the evacuation of political creativity from the social field. Activism becomes a desperate attempt for of person that is doomed to fail. For political innovation, sociality was operative replace the desire of duty. Depression is born out of the dispersion of the community's immediacy. Depression is a really sorrowful experience. Something we must actively be facing. The infant cannot merely ward it off with those Middleton. Well, we need to assess if classical conditions run into analytics of depression and adequate politics. Also, the alternative is able to solve this because it still endorses the part of the 1AC that affirms this. It just rejects the interpretation of the text. Quick second, Brett. You got to read this card. This sounds like right at the time. Was that cool? Yeah. I had 4 seconds.
Okay. How do we avoid interpretation?
How do you avoid it?
No, how do you avoid it?
He avoided by saying that the 1AC story of the way that virtual mobility came into place in the transportation infrastructure realm has nothing to do with debate. It has nothing to do with anything but what it is. The sentence that I just said is the only meaning that can be derived from that sentence, and making analogies to debate or analogies to other arguments.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean by the sentence I just said is the only meaning that can be ascribed to that sentence?
I mean that the only...
You didn't say ascribed, you said derived. That's even more important.
No, what I'm saying is that there are no external interpretations that you can read onto a text.
So I cannot interpret that sentence in a different way than you intended it for it to be interpreted.
No, that's not what
really?
I said. What I said was that the intent of the author when writing that was presumably not to talk about debate. You have put your interpretation into it.
No, I'm talking about the sentence that you said. Why can't I interpret your question in a different way than you intended it to?
You can, but that...
do you think it helps you research?
Yes.
Have you ever gone to the library to do research for debate?
Yes.
For debate, okay, cool. What is the most important thing you think about debating with a computer or debating with a paper?
The distinction between the two, or I don't know.
Just like the biggest reason that you debate with a computer.
I'd say probably the cost differential and also the logistics, printing files.
Okay, that makes sense.
Organizing.
Did you use the iDebate tab room to get pairings at this tournament?
No, they were handed to me by, I think, Lexi Green.
Okay, every time?
I think I might have used a Google document that the community created.
Okay, that makes sense. Did you access that from your computer or your phone?
I accessed that from Liam King's computer, who had it up during tournament.
Have you used the wiki before tournaments to prepare for other teams?
The argument wiki?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that is have you found that beneficial to your debate skills?
I think that the ability to share arguments before a round creates a better forum for discussion when teams are just like reacting on the fly.
Have you ever had a friend send you evidence before a round that you were prepping for in a rush?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that gave you a benefit over somebody who may not have been able to have that evidence?
Well, I mean, if I have evidence and you do not, and judges decide that having evidence on questions is important to decide
That makes sense.
valid, then yes.
That makes sense. Have you ever cut evidence yourself, like using your computer or using the internet before a round?
I have cut cards before. Rarely.
I understand that. I meant like in the rush before a round.
Oh, before a round?
Yeah, in the moments before a round. Okay.